The argument started before dawn, echoing through the grand halls of the Cole mansion. Plates clattered to the marble floor, silverware spun across polished tiles, and Vanessa's sharp voice cut like a knife. "I can't believe you forgot the board meeting again. Do you even care about this company or this marriage?" Richard slammed his palm against the mahogany dining table. "Do you think money solves everything, Vanessa? I work 15 hours a day and you complain I'm not paying attention to you?" Vanessa's eyes blazed. "Money? You think I care about money? I care about respect. I care about love. I care about the fact that we don't even talk anymore except to fight." Richard exhaled sharply and stormed toward the balcony. He paused at the floor-to-ceiling glass doors and looked down at the street below. The neighborhood was modest, quiet, almost sleepy. That's when he saw them, the family next door, the poor neighbors who lived in a small, weathered house with peeling paint and a yard barely large enough for their 3 children. And yet, they laughed. The couple, Joseph and Grace, held hands while their children ran around barefoot, chasing each other with giggles that carried through the cool morning air. Grace twirled with one of the children, spinning slowly until they collapsed in laughter on the small patch of grass. Joseph wiped the sweat from his forehead, then pulled his wife close for a quick kiss before chasing another child. The scene was chaotic, imperfect, messy, but beautiful. Richard's chest tightened. How can people with nothing look happier than us? He whispered to himself. Vanessa appeared behind him, brushing her silk hair from her face. She leaned against the glass. "What are you staring at?" Richard hesitated. "Them, the neighbors. Don't you see it? They barely have anything, yet they actually enjoy being together." Vanessa followed his gaze and frowned. "It's irritating. I can't understand how they find happiness in poverty. Look at us. We have everything, Richard, everything, and we're miserable." He turned to her. "Exactly. We have everything except love." Vanessa's eyes softened for just a fraction of a second before she crossed her arms. "Maybe that's because we're too busy trying to prove we have everything." They didn't speak for a long moment. The sounds of the poor family laughing drifted up, carefree and unbothered by the world. Vanessa finally whispered, almost to herself, "Maybe we should learn from them." Richard blinked. "Learn from them? Vanessa, they live in a shack. What could they possibly teach us about marriage?" She shrugged, but the thought lingered in both their minds, quietly gnawing at the edges of their pride. The next morning, the argument resumed before sunrise. Plates were replaced with coffee mugs, and words with sharp edges still flew across the marble kitchen. Vanessa sat at the breakfast bar, scrolling through her tablet. Richard moved behind her, leaning against the counter. "Do you ever wonder why we fight so much?" Vanessa asked. Richard shook his head. "We fight because we're always right, because we expect perfection, because we forgot what it means to be a couple." Vanessa's lips twitched. "Maybe the neighbors are right. Maybe happiness isn't about money. Maybe we've been looking in the wrong place." Richard laughed bitterly. "Right, Vanessa. You want to take marriage advice from someone whose idea of dinner is a bowl of rice and beans?" Vanessa ignored him, eyes still fixed on the small house across the way. She watched Grace chase a child around their tiny yard. The laughter, the warmth, the connection, it pulled at something inside her she had long ignored. Later that day, Richard found himself in the study, staring at financial reports he barely understood anymore. The numbers meant nothing without someone to share them with. He thought back to the poor neighbors, their simple life, the way they played together, argued gently, then laughed harder than he had in years. He felt an unfamiliar pang, a mix of jealousy and longing. "Maybe Vanessa was right," he murmured. Evening fell and the Cole mansion was silent except for the faint hum of the city below. Richard and Vanessa had spent the day in tense silence, avoiding each other. That night, as they both retired to separate rooms, neither slept. Richard lay staring at the ceiling, replaying the scenes from next door. Vanessa, in her silk sheets, felt a strange tug in her heart she couldn't name. By the weekend, the couple found themselves on the balcony together again, watching Joseph and Grace play with their children. Richard finally broke the silence. "You know, I never thought I'd say this, but I envy them." Vanessa's eyes widened. "Envy them? Really?" "Yes, they laugh. They touch each other without fear. They argue, they forgive, and they are genuinely happy." Vanessa nodded slowly. I think we need help from them." Richard froze. "From them? You mean marriage advice from our poor neighbors?" "Yes," Vanessa said quietly, almost ashamed. "We need to learn how to be happy, like them." The next morning, they walked to the neighbor's small house, the weight of their own wealth and pride heavy on their shoulders. Joseph opened the door, wiping grease from his hands. "Sir, ma'am, can I help you?" Richard swallowed. We need advice about marriage." Grace blinked. "Marriage advice from us?" "Yes," Vanessa said. "We want to know how you do it, how you love each other and your family, even though you have so little." Joseph exchanged a glance with Grace, then smiled. "Well, I guess it's better to talk than to pretend you know everything." Over the next hour, the billionaires listened as Joseph and Grace shared their simple rules for a happy marriage: respect, gratitude, forgiveness, and spending quality time together. Richard and Vanessa felt an unfamiliar stirring inside, a warmth they hadn't felt in years. Vanessa asked, voice trembling slightly, "But how do you stay calm when life is so hard?" Grace smiled softly. "Life is hard everywhere. Money doesn't make it easier. We focus on what we can give each other every day. Small gestures, small kindnesses. That's what keeps love alive." Richard nodded slowly, realizing they had spent decades chasing wealth and status while neglecting the one thing that truly mattered: connection. That evening, as the billionaires walked back to their mansion, both were quiet, lost in thought. They didn't speak about wealth, power, or prestige. For the first time, they spoke about each other. Richard reached for Vanessa's hand and held it gently. She didn't pull away. Back in the mansion, they sat across from each other at the dinner table, not eating in silence this time, but talking. The conversation was hesitant, awkward at first, but real. And when Vanessa laughed, even at a small joke, Richard felt a flicker of hope. Days turned to weeks. The Cole mansion slowly began to change. The arguments didn't disappear overnight, but they began listening more. They started small: dinners together, walks in the garden, honest conversations. They even found themselves watching Joseph and Grace again, not from envy this time, but with curiosity and admiration. One night, Richard said softly, "You know, I never thought I'd admit this, but their marriage has taught me more than all our business books combined." Vanessa nodded slowly. "I feel the same. I've spent years trying to control everything, and I forgot that love isn't something you control, it's something you nurture." Their transformation wasn't instant, but the process had begun. The mansion felt lighter, warmer, filled with laughter once again. And one evening, they decided to surprise their neighbors with a simple gift: a basket of food and small toys for the children, delivered not as charity, but as gratitude. Joseph and Grace were shocked. "You didn't have to," Grace said, touched. "We wanted to," Vanessa said simply, "because what you've given us cannot be measured in money." Joseph nodded, smiling. "Sometimes the richest people are the ones who have the least." Richard looked at his wife and whispered, "I think I finally understand what that means." As they walked back to their mansion, Vanessa squeezed his hand. "We have billions, but for the first time, I feel like we have love too." And high above in their balcony, they paused, watching the poor family play with joy that wasn't bound by wealth, yet now mirrored in their own hearts. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to like the video and comment below. What would you do if you realized money couldn't buy happiness? Make sure to subscribe for the full journey of the Cole couple and the life-changing lessons they learned from their neighbors.